The Galactic Academy's disciplinary board convened an emergency session because a human student's file crashed their entire security network, twice. Kael'thas, the Academy's senior administrator, stared at his terminal with 3 of his 4 eyes, while the 4th tracked the panicked messages flooding in from Security Chief Vexia. The human student's background check had triggered lockdowns in systems that weren't supposed to be accessible from educational databases. Military encryption protocols, classified intelligence networks, things that absolutely should not exist in a civilian student's file. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Sir, we have another problem. Vexia's voice crackled through his comm. The harassment complaints. Kael'thas pulled up the file. 47 documented incidents in 3 months. Emma Johnson, human, first-year xenobiology student, had been the target of systematic bullying from a group led by Xilax, a Corinthian student from a prestigious military family. The complaints detailed physical intimidation, verbal harassment, destruction of personal property, and public humiliation. Standard Academy security had issued warnings, but nothing had stopped. "What's the human doing right now?" Kael'thas asked. "Cafeteria, eating lunch. Xilax and his crew just surrounded her table." Kael'thas felt his circulation membranes constrict. "Get down there, now, and whatever you do, decrypt that file. I need to know what we're dealing with." He pulled up the security feed. Emma sat alone at a corner table, working through what looked like a sandwich while reviewing notes on her datapad. She was small for a human, barely 5.5 feet, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked tired. She always looked tired. Xilax's group closed in, 8 of them blocking exits. The Corinthian leaned over her table, mandibles clicking with aggressive posturing. Emma looked up, sighed, and said something. Even without audio, Kael'thas could read the resignation in her body language. His terminal chimed. The decryption had finally broken through. Terran Defense Force, Special Operations Command Personnel File, classified, level Omega name, Johnson, Emma Marie rank, Master Sergeant, retired. Service, duration, 15 years, 7 months, 23 days. Specialty, close quarter, combat hostile environment extraction. Kael'thas scrolled faster, his 3 hearts accelerating. Combat deployments, Proxima Rebellion, 18 months. Kepler Station Siege, 8 months. Titan Protocol, redacted, 14 months. New Singapore Evacuation, 3 months. 7 additional classified operations, confirmed hostile eliminations. Redacted decorations. Terran Star of Valor. 3. Cross-Species Humanitarian Service Medal, Sanctuaries 5, 12 additional citations, psychological profile, severe PTSD, chronic, nightmares, hypervigilance, dissociative episodes under stress. Recommended, immediate civilian reintegration, educational support, ongoing counseling. Discharge status, medical honorable threat. Assessment, do not engage under any circumstances. Subject has demonstrated lethal capability against numerically superior forces. Approach only with explicit consent and non-threatening posture. Current status, civilian student, enrolled in Galactic Academy Xenobiology program as part of rehabilitation and reintegration therapy. "By the void," Kael'thas whispered. His comm exploded. "Sir, Xilax just challenged her to a sanctioned duel." Emma really didn't want to do this. "Come on, human," Xilax chittered, his translator rendering his species' aggressive clicking into mocking standard. "Everyone knows your kind are weak, soft. You hide behind your technology because without it, you're nothing." Emma set down her sandwich carefully. "Xilax, buddy, I'm just trying to eat lunch. Can we not do this today?" "Scared?" One of his friends laughed. "The human's scared." A crowd was gathering. Of course a crowd was gathering. Emma recognized the dynamic. She'd seen it 1,000 times in 1,000 different contexts. Young males from warrior cultures trying to prove dominance, picking the target that looked weakest. Classic primate behavior, just with different physiology. The problem was she wasn't weak. She was just trying very, very hard to be normal. "Look," Emma said, keeping her voice level and calm. "I don't want to fight you. There's no point. Can we just—" "The Academy allows sanctioned duels for settling disputes," Zilax announced loudly, playing to the crowd. "I formally challenge you, human, unless you're too cowardly to face a real warrior." Emma closed her eyes, felt the familiar tension building in her shoulders, the old training rising up like muscle memory. Breathe. Count to 5. Remember where you are. You're not there anymore. You're safe. This is a school. These are kids. But they weren't going to let her walk away. She'd tried that 47 times, and every time she backed down, they just got bolder. Dr. Yenna, her therapist, had warned her about this. Sometimes avoidance became its own trap. "Fine," Emma said quietly, standing up. "Training arena, non-lethal protocols. And Zilax? I'm warning you right now, this is a bad idea." The crowd cheered. Zilax's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his species. Finally, the human shows spine. They didn't understand. The warning wasn't a threat. It was a desperate plea. Kael'thas and Vexia sprinted through the corridors, the security chief's translator barking commands to clear a path. Around them, students pressed against walls, startled by the sight of senior administrators running. "How long until they reach the arena?" Kael'thas demanded. "They're already there. Protocols are activating now." "Can we override?" "Not without shutting down the entire arena grid. It would take 10 minutes. They didn't have 10 minutes. Kael'thas pulled up Emma's file on his mobile unit, reading as he ran. The details were horrifying. The Battle of Proxima, her unit had held a colony against 10,000 hostiles for 72 hours until reinforcements arrived. Casualty ratio, 287 to 1. The Kepler station siege, she'd led the evacuation of 50,000 civilians while the station was under active bombardment, personally holding the docking bay for 8 hours against waves of attackers. And the Titan Protocol. The details were still redacted, but the casualty numbers weren't. Whatever had happened there, Emma Johnson had walked into hell and walked back out. Most of her unit hadn't. "Vexia," Kael'thas said, his voice tight. "What happens when you take a predator, train it for 15 years to kill, then try to teach it to be gentle?" "Sir, that human has spent 3 months being harassed, and she never once retaliated. Do you understand what kind of control that requires?" They reached the arena entrance. Through the transparent aluminum walls, they could see the crowd. Nearly 200 students had gathered, their voices creating a roar of anticipation. In the center of the arena, Emma stood with her hands loose at her sides, face carefully neutral. Across from her, Zilax was performing pre-combat stretches, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. "We're too late to stop it," Vexia said. "No," Kael'thas replied. "We're too late to prevent it. But we might be in time to explain it." The arena protocols activated with their familiar chime. Medical teams positioned, non-lethal force fields engaged, safety monitors online. Emma had reviewed all of this during orientation. The Academy took student safety seriously. Duels were rare but allowed, a way for species with warrior traditions to resolve conflicts without actual harm. The protocols assumed both participants were students. They weren't designed for someone with Emma's training. "Ready, human?" Zilax called out, settling into a combat stance Emma recognized as standard Corinthian military form. Decent balance, good use of his natural advantages. He'd had training, probably thought he was pretty good. "Not really," Emma admitted honestly. "Last chance to call this off." The crowd booed. Someone shouted, "Coward!" Emma sighed and settled into a neutral stance, weight balanced, hands open, body relaxed. Not a combat stance. Just ready. "Okay, your move." Zilax attacked immediately, exactly as she'd expected. His species favored overwhelming aggression, using their natural armor and strength to dominate opponents quickly. He came in high with a striking appendage, following with a low sweep. Emma stepped off the line of attack, letting his momentum carry him past. Xylax, seriously, we can still... He spun, faster than most species could, and struck again. Emma slipped the blow, still trying to maintain distance. The crowd was roaring now, and she could see the confusion starting to dawn on some faces. Xylax was fast, well-trained, and he hadn't landed a single hit. "Stop dodging and fight," Xylax snarled, unleashing a combination that would have hospitalized most students. Emma blocked, deflected, and countered with just enough force to create space. "I'm trying not to fight, that's the point." But Xylax wasn't listening. He'd been raised in a culture where combat was honor, where backing down was weakness. Every time Emma avoided his attacks, he saw cowardice instead of restraint. He pressed harder, his strikes getting wilder, more desperate, and Emma felt something shift inside her. The arena, the crowd, the aggressive opponent. Her body didn't care that this was a school. 15 years of training didn't just disappear because she wanted to be normal. The reflexes lived in her muscles, autonomous and instant. She started countering more aggressively, not hitting, just controlling, directing his attacks away, off-balancing his stance, making him work harder for less effect. It was a language she'd spoken fluently for most of her adult life, and her body remembered every word. "Wait," someone in the crowd said. "Those moves..." "That's military-grade defensive protocol," another voice confirmed, sounding shocked. "Where did a civilian student learn?" Emma heard them and felt her stomach drop. No, they couldn't know. This was supposed to be her fresh start. Her chance to be just another student, just another person, just... Xylax, frustrated and embarrassed, grabbed a practice weapon from the rack, a training staff meant for supervised instruction. Against the rules, but the safety protocols weren't fast enough to stop him, and Emma's body reacted before her brain could catch up. Muscle memory, threat assessment, hostile with weapon. Close distance. Disarm. Neutralize. 2.3 seconds. The weapon clattered across the floor. Xylax was on his back, Emma's hand at his throat, her knee pinning his primary weapon arm, her weight distributed to control his center of mass. Perfect technique, textbook execution, absolutely lethal if she'd wanted it to be. The arena went silent. Emma snapped back to awareness, and horror flooded through her. "Oh, shit! Xylax, I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Are you okay?" She released him immediately, scrambling backward, hands up and open. Xylax lay where he was, his breathing rapid, his eyes wide with a fear Emma recognized. She'd seen it before, in the faces of combatants who suddenly realized how outmatched they were. "I'm sorry," Emma repeated, her voice shaking. The weapon. I didn't think. It was just reflex. I'm so sorry." The arena doors opened. Kael'thas entered, Vexia beside him, both looking grave. The administrator carried a data pad that seemed to weigh more than its physical mass. "Emma Johnson," Kael'thas said formally, his voice carrying across the silent arena. "We need to discuss your file." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "Sir, that's classified. You don't have clearance to..." "We crack the encryption." He turned to address the crowd, projecting the datapad's contents onto the arena's main display. "I think everyone deserves to understand what just happened here." "No," Emma whispered, but it was too late. The file appeared above them, massive and damning. Terran Defense Force. Special Operations Command. The crowd's murmur started low and built rapidly as they read. Emma wanted to run, to hide, to be anywhere but here with 200 students staring at her service record, her decorations, her... "The Battle of Proxima," Kael'thas read aloud. Master Sergeant Johnson's unit held Colony 7 against 10,000 hostiles for 72 hours. Her leadership and tactical decisions saved approximately 45,000 civilian lives. Emma sat down hard on the arena floor, putting her head in her hands. Kepler Station Siege. She personally held the primary docking bay for 8 hours, sustaining multiple injuries to allow the evacuation of 50,000 civilians. She was the last person off the station before it fell. "Please stop," Emma said quietly, but Kael'thas continued. "The Titan Protocol. Details classified, but the commendations speak for themselves. Awarded the Terran Star of Valor with distinction. Citations from 7 different species military commands for her actions, saving their personnel." The display shifted to her psychological profile. Emma couldn't look up, couldn't face them seeing that part. The nightmares, the hypervigilance, the diagnosis that had ended her career, severe PTSD, chronic. "Medical discharge," Kael'thas read, his voice softer now. "Recommended treatment, immediate civilian reintegration, educational support, ongoing counseling. Current status, civilian student, attempting rehabilitation through academic pursuits." The silence was absolute. Kael'thas walked to where Emma sat and lowered himself to her level with considerable dignity. "You weren't here because you were weak," he said gently. "You were here because you were trying to heal." Emma looked up, tears tracking down her face. "I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to be a student. I wanted—" Her voice broke. "I didn't want to be that person anymore." Zilax had gotten to his feet, moving slowly. He approached Emma with the careful posture of someone who'd just learned a dangerous lesson. You could have killed me, any time in the last 3 months. Easily," Emma nodded miserably. "Yeah, that's why I kept trying to walk away." "Every joke," Vexia said from behind Kael'thas, understanding dawning in her voice. "Every deflection, every time you backed down from confrontation." "I was protecting you," Emma finished. "All of you, because I know what I'm capable of, and I know what it costs, and I never wanted to be that person again. I just wanted to study xenobiology and maybe make some friends and have a normal life for once." The crowd was backing away, but not in fear, in shame. Emma could see it in their faces, the horrible realization of what they'd been doing. They'd been tormenting someone who could have ended any of them at any moment, someone who'd been desperately holding on to peaceful normalcy with both hands. "The weak human," Janira, a Severian student, said from the crowd, her voice choked with emotion. "You're the most dangerous person in this entire academy, and you spent 3 months protecting us from yourself." Emma laughed, but it came out as a sob. "I'm not dangerous. I'm trying not to be dangerous." "There's a difference." Kael'thas stood, addressing the assembly with the full weight of his authority. "Emma Johnson came to this academy seeking what any veteran deserves, a chance to leave the war behind. Instead, she found harassment and mockery. She responded with restraint that most of us cannot begin to comprehend." He turned to Zilax. "You and your associates will report to my office immediately following this assembly. What you've done isn't just bullying, it's a profound failure to recognize the courage standing in front of you." Zilax's mandibles trembled. "Master Sergeant, Emma, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." "That was kind of the point," Emma said tiredly, wiping her eyes. "I'm trying to leave Master Sergeant Johnson behind. I just want to be Emma. Just Emma." "Then that's who you'll be," Kael'thas said firmly. "This file will be resealed immediately. Emma Johnson, first-year xenobiology student. That's the only identity that matters within these walls." The crowd dispersed slowly, students processing what they'd witnessed. Emma remained sitting on the arena floor until most of them had gone, unwilling to face the stares and whispers. Janira approached cautiously, her natural bioluminescence flickering with nervous patterns. "Emma, I wanted to say I'm sorry. I never participated in the bullying, but I never stopped it either, and that's almost as bad." Emma looked up at her. "It's okay." "It's not." Janira settled beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "But if you want, I'm working on that xenobiology project about Terran ocean ecosystems. You picked the same topic. We could maybe study together?" If you want company, no pressure. Something cautiously hopeful stirred in Emma's chest. Yeah, I'd like that. Over the next few days, the change rippled through the academy. The bullying stopped immediately, not just from fear, but from genuine understanding. Students who'd mocked Emma now couldn't meet her eyes, and those who'd ignored the harassment seemed determined to make amends. Kael'thas implemented new protocols, comprehensive background checks before enrollment, yes, but more importantly, special support systems for veterans attempting civilian reintegration. Emma's file was re-encrypted with additional security and a new notation: student status, active, handle with respect and care. This individual is rebuilding herself. Do not interfere. The disciplinary board's hearing for Zilax and his associates was swift and severe. Not expulsion. Kael'thas believed in second chances just as Emma had been given one, but mandatory counseling, community service, and a permanent mark on their records. Zilax himself requested a private meeting with Emma. She agreed, though her therapist accompanied her, and they met in a neutral conference room with Vexia present. I don't expect forgiveness, Zilax said immediately, his translator rendering his words with unusual formality. I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know that I understand now. My family, we come from a warrior tradition. I was raised to see kindness as weakness, restraint as cowardice. You showed me how wrong that was. Emma considered him for a long moment. Zilax, the strongest people I ever served with were the ones who knew when not to fight. It's easy to hurt someone. It takes real strength to choose not to. Is that why you kept walking away? Every single time. Emma smiled sadly. Because once you cross that line, once you let the training take over, it's hard to come back. I didn't want to be the person who solved problems with violence anymore, even when violence would have been easier. I will never forget this lesson, Zilax said solemnly, and if you ever need anything, anything at all, I owe you a debt that can never be fully repaid. Emma surprised herself by laughing. You know what? Just be better. That's all I want. Be better than you were. I will. 2 weeks later, Emma sat in the academy library working on her xenobiology paper. The topic was Terran ocean ecosystems, specifically the coastal regions where she'd grown up, before the recruitment, before the training, before everything else. Is this seat taken? Emma looked up to find Zilax standing with a datapad, looking nervous. It's a library, Emma said. Seats are communal, but if you're here to apologize again, we're good. Really? Actually, Zilax settled across from her carefully. I wanted to ask about your paper topic. You picked Terran ocean ecosystems. I chose Corinthian desert adaptation. I thought, maybe we could discuss our approaches. Dr. Sinara says comparing different environmental adaptations is valuable for understanding evolutionary pressures. Emma blinked, then smiled genuinely for what felt like the first time in months. Yeah, I'd like that. So, ocean ecosystems, the thing people don't realize is how much diversity exists just in the tidal zones. You've got organisms that have to survive being both aquatic and terrestrial on a daily cycle. As she talked, the tension in her shoulders eased. This was why she'd come here, not to forget who she'd been. That wasn't possible, but to remember who she'd been before. The girl who'd loved tide pools and marine biology, who'd wanted to understand how life adapted to impossible environments. She'd become an expert in impossible environments, just not in the way she'd planned. Janira joined them after a few minutes, sliding into the conversation naturally. Then,
Rahul, a quiet student from Emma's chemistry class. Then 2 others whose names Emma was still learning. Before she realized it, she was sitting with a study group, discussing paper topics and arguing about methodology, laughing at bad jokes about xenobiological classification systems. Normal. Blessedly, wonderfully normal. In his office, Kael'thas reviewed the updated academy policies with Vexia. The changes were comprehensive. New support structures for students with military backgrounds, mandatory training for staff on recognizing and addressing harassment, revised protocols for sanctioned duels that required psychological clearance. "Do you think she'll make it?" Vexia asked, watching the security feed that showed Emma's study group. "The transition is difficult for warriors." "Emma Johnson held a colony for 72 hours, Kael'thas said quietly. "She evacuated 50,000 people while under fire. She survived things we don't have clearance to know about." He turned off the feed, giving Emma her privacy. "If she can survive all that, she can survive peace. We just need to give her the chance." He composed his report to the Galactic Education Board, choosing his words carefully. Integration protocols for military veterans. Note: human veterans integrating into civilian life require understanding, not judgment. Their capacity for violence is matched only by their capacity for restraint, a combination that deserves respect, not exploitation. Case study. Student Emma Johnson demonstrated extraordinary self-control over 3 months of harassment, prioritizing the safety of her harassers over her own dignity. This level of restraint is not weakness, but the highest form of strength. Recommendation: all member institutions implement immediate support structures for students with combat backgrounds. These individuals are not dangerous. They are attempting the most difficult mission of their lives. Learning to live without war. The measure of our civilization is not how we treat warriors in battle, but how we honor them in peace. He sent the report and turned back to his work. Outside his window, students moved between classes, 1,000 species learning to coexist, to understand each other, to build something better than the conflicts their ancestors had fought. And in the library, Emma Johnson laughed at something Janira said, surrounded by friends who saw her, really saw her, not as a weapon or a victim, but as exactly what she wanted to be. Just Emma, a student, a person, someone with a future that wasn't defined by her past. She'd fought for 15 years to protect people she'd never met. Now, finally, she was fighting for something harder, the right to be at peace with herself, and this time she was winning.